On today's Transport Evolved, all the new cars from the Detroit Auto Show, ending range anxiety and easily confused plug-in names. These stories and more coming up next on Transport Evolved. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to episode number 226 of Transport Evolved, recorded on Sunday, 18th of January 2015. My name is Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield, and I'm your usual host into the world of future evolving transport. Cleaner, greener, safer, and smarter. That's what we like to say. Although we normally do say cleaner, greener, smarter, and safer. But, you know, as long as those four words are somewhere in the sentence, really, I can't be that bothered. We've got some great things lined up for today's show. Of course, it was the North American International Auto Show in Detroit this week, or the Detroit Auto Show, for those of us who like a shorter title. And we've got two fantastic guests on the show today to discuss things. Being MLK Day tomorrow, I must admit, trying to get Americans on the show today was a little bit fussy and difficult. Most are out skiing and doing other things. But you know what? We've got better than American. We've got Robert Llewellyn and Faye Sunderland joining us today. How are we today, people? How are you, Robert?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, extremely well. And over my jet lag, so I'm all back to normal English time.
Right, and you were back. You were out, weren't you, in Las Vegas?
I was at CES in Las Vegas for the first time. Yes, my first ever visit.
You were a CES virgin.
I was.
Whichever way you want to take that.
I'm now a CES harlot. That's the only way.
CES harlot. Someone who I don't think is a CES harlot is the wonderful Faye Sunderland. How are you today, Faye?
I'm very good, thank you. But I'm very jealous, actually, Robert. I wish I could join you in the CES harlot state.
I think we're all jealous of Robert. There you go, Robert. Everyone's jealous of you being a harlot.
Well, I know. That's just it is a thing we harlots find. It creates a lot of jealousy. Also, I should point out that I saw probably about 5% of what was on display there, because it is so huge. It's very hard to
really
to take it in. It's enormous. I mean, I think it's 3.25 million square feet of exhibition space, and I was there for a day and a half, so I saw very little.
Wow, and it shows really, doesn't it, that CES. It's only a trade show as well. It's not like a show that members of the public can easily go to.
No. I had to get a press pass. Everybody I was with had to get press passes. So yeah, you can't go in you can't sort of buy a ticket and go in and see it, as far as I know, unless they allow that later in the week. Certainly it was all press when I was there.
Wow. And Faye, you and I have just been, kicking back in England doing nothing, haven't we?
Basically, yeah.
So, Faye, tell us what you're up to these days, because you were with the Green Car website, but you're now working as a freelancer.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a little bit of freelancing, but I'm also temp working as well. So I'm juggling 3 different careers at once at the moment. Welcome
to the world of journalism, Faye. That's all I'm going to say. Welcome to the world of journalism. Yeah, still working on bicycles and feet and horses and everything else. For those who don't know, Faye is the go-to girl for everything that is clean and green without an engine, I think, is probably the best way of describing you, Faye.
Yeah, I've not been out for a bit because I've been unwell recently, but I need to get back out on the bike. I'm missing it.
We'll have to get you one of those velomobiles. That's what I really want. One of those fully enclosed velomobiles that you sit in and you pedal, and it's got a roof. And forget combustion engines. They're so last century. They really are. Or electric. It's all about pedal power now. Come the apocalypse, those of us who are biking, those will be the ones who live. Talking about futuristic visions of the world, Mr. Llewellyn. How's your book coming along? News from the clouds.
That's very kind of you to mention it. It is finished, and it is now really going through the sort of being printed bit of a book's existence. So the audio book's recorded, and then I've got the finished manuscript thing, which I've had to check, and there were mistakes in it, and we've all found mistakes, but we've got rid of 99% of them. There'll always be one that gets through. So it is done, and it comes out in about 2 months' time. It's published.
Woo, 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 woo. And there's still time, isn't there, to order it? You can pre-order it.
You can pre-order it now, but you can't get your name in the back. Earlier on, you could get your name as a supporter of the book through Unbound. I'm afraid that time has passed.
I've got my name in the back. I'm a goody two-shoes.
Oh, you're very good, Nikki. Thank you very much.
And I've heard from one of the folks who's working on the audiobook who says very good. So they're sworn to secrecy. They can't tell me what the story's about, but they say
because it's got the ending is there, and no spoilers. But what's great is after writing 2 books that don't have an ending, this one has an ending.
So you're now going to have to come up with some new characters to talk about, to write.
Yes, I have been facing the wall, the blank page, as writers describe it. Just looking at it and then bursting into tears. So there's nothing immediately in the pipeline at the moment.
Okay, well, let's move on and talk about some of the things that you've been up to. You were at CES, as we mentioned earlier on, and you first of all you took a Cadillac ELR from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, across the desert, so to speak, with a wonderful Miss Chelsea Sexton. Tell us about that.
I mean, it was an absolute delight to see. I hadn't seen Chelsea for years, so that was lovely. And she just turned up in the morning with this Cadillac ELR, which is, a sort of Tom Cruise level space age looking vehicle. It's quite an extraordinary car to look at. But then as soon as you start driving, you go, oh, this is a Volt with a different body on it. The interior is gorgeous, but very much a sort of driver and passenger focused 4-seater. So there are 2 seats in the back, but they're pretty, you wouldn't want to be my height and have to sit in the back. It would be a bit cramped.
Right.
But really comfortable ride. And I mean, we did the first 40 miles on highways, on electric only. And then the engine kicked in, and that was exquisite. You can tell the engineering that's gone into that. Really nicely done. You really don't know the engine's running. And then you go, oh, yeah, the engine's running. And then the rest of that journey, we didn't find anywhere to charge it in the town we stopped in now. Of course, I can't remember. I'd have to look on a map, where there is a Tesla supercharger array. But, of course, we couldn't charge the ELR on that. And we couldn't find any other chargers around there. So we did the rest of the journey on petrol. And, I mean, when you drive things like a Prius or even a plug-in hybrid Outlander, you're getting pretty good MPG on overall. And whereas I think this is my feeling about the Volt and the Ampera is if you haven't plugged it in and you're doing a long run like that, you're getting above, big, hefty American trucks. But it's still, we were getting about 45, 46 MPG.
I got to admit, I had to do a drive the other day in the Volt, and we had to take some rushers up to Mark, who, for those who don't know, Mark lives about 25, 30 miles from me. So it's about a 50-mile round trip. Dropped the kids off at school, took the rushers up to Mark, and then drove to Cardiff with my dog for an appointment out there. And I didn't really have much chance to do much in the way of charging in the Volt, and I could have got 20 minutes here and there. I think I averaged about 80 miles per gallon for 100 and some miles, but had I gone much further, as you say, it would have gone down.
It does drop, yeah.
So, and we'll talk about that later on in the show today, because we've obviously had the reveal from the North American International Auto Show of the second generation Volt, which is coming up in a second. But you also got a chance to drive or to be driven in some self-driving cars. Now, we've got some footage here from BMW, their self-driving car, their self-parking car. You said you didn't get a chance to drive that, but you got to drive some others. I didn't get a chance to see that, which was very frustrating, because where that car park is, I was filming about 100 metres away, so really close. Oh, no.
Just down on the ground. Yeah, it was on the roof of a multi-storey car park where they were doing that, and we just didn't have time to do it, which is annoying. But also, it was so booked up. So those events, proper, clever journalists have booked that months in advance, and I don't have I didn't know anybody. I did speak to someone at BMW, and they were, happy for me to see what this car did, next year.
Right.
There's no way I was going to get
I wouldn't feel so bad about it, because BMW haven't let me have one of their cars to review yet. So, and told me earlier last year they're not going to let me. So,
Oh, well, there we go.
We're obviously out of the BMW club. Faye, are you in the BMW club?
I'm afraid I'm not, no.
Well, then we're all in the same bucket then, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't want to show off, but I have driven the i3 and the i8, but,
Yes. Yeah.
not going on about it.
All right, so we saw this, and then Volkswagen were doing lots of cool stuff with their Las Vegas information. They're talking about having cars that will park and charge themselves. They weren't the only people to do that. There were pretty much every automaker who was at CES showed off some kind of futuristic self-driving, self-charging electric car, didn't they, Robert?
They did. I mean, it was the whole place. The two things that there were three things that I noticed that were that everyone was talking about, everyone was aware of, was smart devices, the smart home, the connected grid to home storage of like solar generated energy, smart cars, so smart vehicle to home, all that kind of intelligent car stuff, self-driving cars, and drones. There were a lot of drones. I did go in the drone hall very briefly. There were some extraordinary drones. So there was a lot of discussion around those topics. But I would say the impact that the kind of the latest generation of self-driving cars had in terms of the media attention was huge. There was so much, because Mercedes had their fully autonomous vehicle driving through the streets of Las Vegas. The car I went in, which was in fact a Jeep Cherokee, which was all the controls were made by Bosch, who I was working with Bosch while I was there. So a lot of my stuff was focused on Bosch's. Had a very big presence at CES, and that car was remarkable because it's that car is completely autonomous up to 35 miles an hour. Yeah. So they call it traffic jam assist, and it drove itself in busy traffic on the streets of Las Vegas.
That is scary.
Very, very well. It was very good. Yeah, it was scary. There was one time where, for some reason, that the driver. I mean, I've made a video of it, so I'll be able to show it. The car decided to turn right towards a bus, and there wasn't any immediate obvious reason other than it had enough. And thankfully, the driver rectified it. But what it does is it's got video cameras and radar, so anything pulls in front of it, it slows down. It keeps up with the traffic. But it's reliant on the white lines painted on the road to really mark out where its lane is.
Right.
And there aren't any white lines in Las Vegas.
So what you're saying, Robert, is if international terrorists want to actually bring terror to the world in about, 30 years' time, all they need to do is turn up with a bucket of black paint and paint all the lines.
Paint over the white lines. We're all doomed. When you say 30 years, I think we're talking more like 30 months.
Is that going to be that close?
Stuff works now. All the cars have got it built in. They just haven't turned it on. Lots of new cars have got it built into their cars, but it's not turned on yet.
Now, Faye, you are not a fan of driving, are you? So I think you'd quite like to be behind the wheel of behind the wheel, as it were, behind the wheel, quite literally, with a book in your hand, reading a good book.
It sounds lovely to me, especially in that slow urban crawling traffic. Who can be bothered driving in those conditions? It's not fun.
No.
So I think everybody will like driverless cars once they've got faith in them.
I can't wait. Let's move on to North American International Auto Show, or Detroit Auto Show. I think I'm just going to call it Detroit for the rest of the show. It's been doing my head in all week. NAIAS. I've written that so many times in articles this past week. But the Chevy Volt finally revealed. This is what it looks like. It's an interesting. Well, that's photographs of journalists getting really excited taking photographs of it. But that's the car there. That's the Chevy Volt. The new Chevy Volt, 2016 Chevy Volt. It's a 5-seat hatchback this time. 1.5 litre gasoline engine, electric motor, new electric motors, in fact, 2 of them. Slightly larger battery pack, 18.1 kilowatt hour battery pack. Chevy is saying it's now going to go 50 miles per charge, and it's going to get about 41 mpg when the batteries have run out. Still got a 3 kilowatt onboard charger, so it's not going to quick charge or anything special like that, but it is leaner, meaner. I'm not sure if it's as green as I thought it was going to be. And when they say 5 seats, I think really it's a 4-seater with the middle seat. You have to straddle a battery pack, which is very unladylike, if you happen to be a lady. What do we think?
It definitely, I do like the look. I mean, it's very similar to the original Volt, but it does look sleeker. I agree with you, Nikki. I'm disappointed it isn't more efficient. I'm surprised.
It just feels like they've gone through all the, there's a 1.5 litre engine, it's brand new, it's come into the range, and it's giving you, 5 mpg, 6 mpg more than the outgoing engine. And Robert, you've got a plug-in Prius, haven't you? I mean, your plug-in Prius can do 60 miles per gallon.
In American, I mean, that's the problem. We've got American and English gallons. I mean, even in the winter, I'm getting 72, 73. In the summer, I can easily get 90.
And that's UK gallons.
But I mean, that's UK gallons, so it's difficult. So I guess 60, you would get 60 mpg overall in America in it. So yeah, I mean, that's the problem. And then the Prius, the one thing that's really wrong with the plug-in Prius is the battery's too small. Which the capacity is so small. I mean, the advantage is it charges really quickly.
Yes, and it's about an hour and a half if you've got
about an hour and a half, and it's got enough. And it doesn't. I mean, you can do 12 miles on that battery if you're in the summer and 8 in the winter, just about. But you don't. I don't use it. I use it as a backup, which means that even at motorway speeds, going down a slight slope, the engine's not running. So that's where you build up higher MPG. If you drive it carefully, you can get very high.
It was interesting you say that, because when I was driving the Volt the other day, I was playing with ways of getting the Volt to use its engine more efficiently. So I was doing a lot of coasting, which the new Volt has actually got these paddle shifters that allow you to change the coasting. You tried that out in the ELR.
Yes.
How did that feel?
I mean, that is very good. I like that. And I mean, I really enjoyed driving the ELR. It was really good. And I guess that's it'll be between the original Volt and the new Volt. I mean, it will be it was slightly upgraded from the original Volt, which I haven't had a lot of experience driving, but I have driven it. Mm-hmm. But when you're on an American highway, which is what those cars are built for, which is basically, a road that disappears over the horizon. I mean, there's some fantastic bits of road in between Los Angeles and Vegas where there's just this straight black line across a desert that goes as far as you can see. So there's not a lot of slowing down and speeding up type driving. You're doing a constant 70, which most people do. They obey the speed limit much more in America. I think probably because they're terrified.
I think it's because they're used to cruise control more over there, and Brits don't trust cruise control.
I was cruising at 68 miles an hour for probably an hour and a half, with no interruption. I don't think I've ever done that on a motorway in the UK, because there'd always be a truck or a bus or something in the way. So you don't do that here.
It reminds me of the scene in Paul, that excellent comedy by Simon Clegg, and I've forgotten who else wrote it, in which the alien escapes from Area 51, the guys, the men in black, are trying to follow it, obviously, and one of them is driving the car and he's fallen asleep with the cruise control on, but it's okay because he's driving straight back. Right, back to the Volt. I feel disappointed, as we talked about already, in terms of the gasoline engine and how efficient that is. I'm glad that we've now got 50 mpg. But here's the real question, and it's a question we're going to keep coming back to in today's show. Is that going to be enough, Faye? Because we've got a whole slew of second-generation cars promised now that are going to give people much more than the 41 mpg US and the 50 miles all-electric range. Or is this going to still be a transitional car for people?
Well, I mean, obviously, here in the UK, Chevrolet are going, so they're sort of definitely not in the running, certainly in Europe anyway. How they're going to fare in the US, I mean, yeah, the competition's growing. They've got Tesla to deal with, they've got Toyota. I don't know. I don't know if it's good enough.
And we've seen a lot of cars coming into the UK that have tried to kind of make plug-ins sexy. And there's one car that launched this week that I think really has managed to do that, or at least tried to make it a bit more exciting. And that's the Golf GTE. Went on sale this week in the UK, £33,035 before incentives, which puts it, just where all the other plug-in hybrids are. The only plug-in hybrid I would say that's really made it big in the UK so far has been the Outlander plug-in hybrid, the 4x4, which I think we've all driven, and it's a really good car. It's got CHAdeMO DC quick charging, which is perfect for charging up if you need to in a hurry, if you happen to pass by a quick charge station. But the Golf GTE goes on sale now. I know we've all driven that because you were all at the same press launch, and I think this is going to really revolutionise people's opinions of plug-in cars in the UK, because it's a plug-in hybrid that also has a range extending or a regular engine for long distance. Faye, what was your opinion of it when you drove it back in whenever it was and we all went out to the Alps?
I think it was great because it's kind of a bit of everything, isn't it? It's still a sensible family hatchback, but it's also sporty, but it's also green. It's kind of a bit all singing, all dancing.
Now, have you owned a Volkswagen before, Faye? Have you ever had one?
No, I haven't. No.
So, Robert, you've had a Volkswagen. You've had several Volkswagens over the years, haven't you? And including one particular very sporty one.
I think it shows the true tragedy of a large period of my life. I think at some point or other I owned just about every model of Volkswagen Golf that has ever been made. So I've had two GTIs, a GTD, a VR6, a V6 4Motion, an R32, and a CL, which was I think the first one. So a very wide range of Golfs anyway over the years. So I'm obviously a bit of a Golf head. So when I drove the GTE, I was very actually I love the Golf E, the pure electric Golf. It's fantastic.
And funnily enough, Mark and I have just finished filming our review for that, and Mark's just editing it. That's what I was taking the rushes up to him to edit, but he's now editing the review. So the reviews will be hopefully next week. We'll have our e-Golf review up. But the GTE and the e-Golf, both fantastic cars. It's a shame that the GTE is not going to make it to the States, because I think it would absolutely clean up in a lot of places, especially in California. But I think it would be really, really popular because it gives 30 miles, approximately 25 to 30 miles of all electric range. And then it's a regular petrol car after that, but it's got 6-speed gearbox. It's quite sporty. It feels just like an ordinary Golf. And that's, I think, one of the things that Volkswagen's managed to do with the whole of its lineup, whether you're talking about hydrogen, whether you're talking about electric, whether you're talking about plug-in hybrid, whether you're talking about diesel or petrol, all of their cars really do feel like a Golf or like a Volkswagen. It's that same feel all the way through. And I think that's a really revolutionary feeling. And I don't think any other automakers managed to do that yet. I think what they've done is very impressive, and also I like the idea that when they redesigned the entire vehicle, they redesigned it absolutely. I think, is this the Mark 8 Golf? It's something like that. Mark 7.
Mark 7. So the Mark 7 Golf, but there's absolutely no difference in the interior, regardless of what makes it go along. So they haven't sort of squashed it up because they've got to put batteries in. They all fit under the floor. You wouldn't know. You cannot tell the difference unless you see the badge. That's the only way you can judge. And the GTE was just brilliant fun to drive. If you're into having a plug-in hybrid, but you still want it to go vroom. I mean, the fact that the engine noise is fake doesn't worry me. When you floor it, it makes a great noise.
Is it fake, Robert?
I assume it's a bit like the BMW i8. It's got it's been tweaked. So what you're hearing is a sort of throaty, masculine, testosterone-based when actually the engine itself would be.
I'm not so sure about that because Faye,
maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong.
Faye, you were my co-pilot, weren't you, in that test drive? And I took it up the Swiss mountains quite energetically in petrol mode with the paddle shift, making Faye feel terribly travel sick. But we had didn't we have the windows down? And I was commenting on how throaty it was.
Yeah, we definitely had the windows down. Yeah.
Now I've got to find out. All right. Well, we're going. It is a gorgeous looking car, though. I mean, you just have to look at it. It just does look like a regular Golf. Sorry, we're just gonna have to stop the Volkswagen Golf GTE love, and I'm going to get so many people saying mean things about me and the car and everything else. You're promoting a car that burns petrol. Yes, but this is a transitional car. There are so many people out there who wouldn't buy a purely electric car. And if this car gets them into a plug-in car and gets them into the habit of plugging in, then I think it's really super important that we let those cars exist and that we let those cars be used, because at the end of the day, less gasoline use, the better. Let's have an ad break and we'll be right back. Do you enjoy the show? Do you like wearing fun and unique clothes that support the things you love? Then you're going to want to head over to www.transportevolve.com/shop, where you can show support of Transport Evolved by buying one of our fabulous Transport Evolved branded apparel. We've got everything from hoodies and t-shirts to water bottles, badges and tote bags, and they'll be sent direct from our partners at Spreadshirt to your home address in double quick time. What's more, by buying something from our shop, you'll be sending us a little kickback as a thanks for our hard work on the show. And you'll get something unique and fun, and we'll get some warm, fuzzy feelings knowing we can continue to bring you a great show every week. What's not to love? Part 2 of the fantastic show. Today we've got the wonderful Faye Sunderland and also wonderful Robert Llewellyn on the show. Say hello, everybody.
Oh, hello.
Hello. That's terrible. You never think that, professionals. Professionals. All right, so back to the Detroit Auto Show. See, I said I wasn't going to call it the North American International Auto Show. We had a surprise. Now, it was supposed to be, according to several people who went to the Detroit show, it was supposed to be Mary Barra. She's the CEO of GM, first female CEO of GM. It was supposed to be her Steve Jobs and finally moment, or the one more thing moment, and it was leaked out ahead of time. GM has worked on and developed a concept car called the Bolt, the Chevy Bolt. We talked about this a little bit last week, and we said how stupid the name Bolt was, considering we've got the Chevy Volt. And if you're like me and you sometimes struggle hearing what people are saying, I can imagine the call now, can you? Hello, I've got a Chevrolet Volt. I'd like to book it in for a service, please. Sorry, do you mean Bolt? No, I mean Volt. Problem is, I suspect Brits would be too polite to say anything, get upset about it. But this is the car. It's no, that's the car. That's the car here. It's the Chevy Bolt. It's a 4-seat, very tall car, isn't it? It looks best at home in the urban environment. Faye, what do you make of this car? Its design is quite interesting. I can't help but think that it looks a little bit like the old Mercedes A-Class in shape. You're quite right.
A bit of throwback.
Now, I've said it looks a little bit like the BMW i3. Other people have said it looks a little bit like one of Renault's Scenics old generation cars. It's made of very lightweight material, supposed to be super, super cool. And of course, the big thing is that it's supposed to have a range of 200 miles per charge. Fully smart connected, gadgets up the wazoo. This is what you're going to be driving in 10 years' time, Robert? Is this a realistic expectation?
Well, I hope sooner than 10. At the moment, today, Nikki, we're going to be doing everything in 10 years' time. I'm very impatient because I don't want to tell you how old I will be in 10 years' time. I don't have that long to wait. But I mean, no, I think that there's no reason at all why in 18 months, for instance, that car couldn't be in production. I mean, it's entirely up to GM, who knows? But it's certainly the fact that the first real sense I got of this was the Kia Soul, which has the same weight battery as the original Nissan Leaf. So the battery pack weighs, I think it's within half a kilo of but it has 4 kilowatt hours greater storage. So, that fact alone tells you what's happening in battery technology. It's the energy density is going to increase, and it's not going to increase like overnight by 150%. It's going to increase year on year by 10, 15%, which means that in 2 years' time, you can have a battery that is the same size as the original Nissan Leaf battery, which will have 40 kilowatt hours maybe, and that's certainly what Nissan are implying. So this strikes me as being perfectly plausible. As regards the look of a car, I've got some sort of genetic failing which makes me not really be able to appreciate the true beauty of a Lamborghini or Aston Martin or a Ford Fiesta. I don't really care what it looks like.
I tell you what, that's like, I'm sometimes a bit like that. The thing I think that strikes me about the Chevy Bolt is that it does look very stunning. It looks very futuristic. I don't think it's a long distance trip car, despite the fact that Chevy's going, look, this is our vision of what a 200-mile car could look like in a couple of years' time. And you're right, Robert. I mean, 2017, 2018 was a figure being banded around. That would coincide with Nissan's next generation Leaf. It would also coincide with the Tesla Model 3, which is coming out. Like that, but it would also coincide with several other long distance cars that are coming to market around the same time. Several people have said, the Chevy Bolt and the Tesla Model 3 will cross shop. They won't. Anyone who thinks that a Chevy and a Tesla will cross shop is a little bit delusional. Tesla set itself up as a luxury brand. It wants to set itself up as a BMW 3 Series competitor for the 3. The Chevy kind of just has that much more down-to-earth feel, and I think that's a very good thing for the market. I think it will go against the Nissan Leaf quite happily. But the thing that I was a bit frustrated about was there were lots of people, surprisingly large numbers of people, on our comment threads saying things like, well, GM's just pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. This is another, smoke and mirrors exercise. GM's never going to actually make it. Tesla's the only one who's ever going to succeed. Why are you giving GM so much attention? It seems to me that people are still really sore about the EV1.
Well, I mean, I would imagine it's fairly specific to California, that bitterness. Because I mean, outside, whenever I tell anyone here the story, or if they haven't seen Who Killed the Electric Car and they don't know about it, they haven't heard of the EV1, they don't know what the hell it is, they don't know anything about the legislation that brought that into place in the first place. So I think you're getting a lot of comments from Californians. No, I'm not denigrating Californians. They're marvellous. They're all lovely. But I mean, I think it's fairly specific to the American market. There were never any EV1s in Europe, so we don't know anything about it over here.
Well, I mean, I've met people one way and who've been one way and some people who've been the other. But I think the Chevrolet Bolt, and people have said to me, I have to do this when I'm talking about we all have to do it now. We have to make a B sign.
I'm not even sure I can do that.
I can't do it. Well, but also you could say Beta Alt, and what's the call sign for
Victor.
V? I can't remember.
Victor Volt.
The Victor Alt or the Beta Alt.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, I think we've got a good reason to be slightly skeptical, because it's a concept car and concept cars are always a bit kind of up in the air. But I think that GM does have a real plan to bring this to market. I think that we're not going to see it in quite the same way that it's shown. If you look back to the first generation Chevy Volt and that very first concept car we saw back in, was it 2007? It didn't look anything like the production version that launched in 2011, or 2010, didn't look anything like the concept car we saw, which was much leaner. It had bigger wheels. It was much more aggressive. And I think the Bolt, with a B for Bravo, is going to be very much the same thing. It's going to evolve over time. I think it is going to be a city car if it continues to go with that form factor, because there's not enough room to pack in everything you need for a long distance trip. Now, okay, I'm acknowledging that in the US, a 200-mile trip is not considered long distance. In fact, my mother-in-law travels that kind of distance to get a ham just for Christmas. But I think, in order for it to be a more usable car, I think it's going to be a different design is going to be required for it to be a long distance car. But let's not forget, Faye and Robert, that these battery packs could be used in any vehicle. Am I right, Robert?
Oh, I'm afraid you've caught me out there. I have no idea. I don't know even. I don't know no, I don't know. Yes.
But I mean, we're talking, if the battery packs are smaller and more energy dense, right? Then presumably means you can put them in anything.
Oh, I would think that's a big, wide, and deep question. My understanding of battery technology is extremely limited, but different manufacturers make them in different ways. with slightly different battery chemistry. I'm very anxious about the fact that you could just take your Bolt battery out and shove it in your Golf GTE. Something tells me that's not possibly going to happen.
I mean, but I mean, if Chevrolet or GM rather has got this technology, has got this really compact battery pack, they're not going to just produce it for one vehicle. They're going to want to roll that out and put it into other models.
It would be wonderful to think that they could put something like that, a battery pack like that, in something like a Volt. So you had a 200-mile electric range with a range extender. Then you're talking, that's a different, I mean, well, let's hope that they do go down that route.
And at that point, I think I'd much rather see a hydrogen range extended car. Because at that point, you could have a hydrogen fuel cell offering range extending beyond 200 miles. You'd have a very, very small hydrogen tank that would never need to be filled up that often.
Yeah,
that would be a really good solution, and then you wouldn't have any emissions at the tailpipe at all.
Very good. I'm with you there.
Faye, as the youngest, funkiest, trendiest person of the trio of us today, do you think this is going to appeal to the younger, smartphone savvy millennial?
Well, I don't know. I think it's still, to me, it looks like maybe this is a European perspective, but like a small family car. So maybe you're looking more at people with one or two kids, but nothing more. And so from a UK perspective, that 200-mile range is, I can't imagine anybody would really need any more than that on a regular basis.
And this does cause a problem, doesn't it, Faye? Because this is about society. We want more, right? We want more than we have. So as soon as someone says, "Okay, here's a mobile phone with a 2-day talk time," we don't want a mobile phone with a 2-day talk time anymore. We want a mobile phone with a 4-day talk time. And I think the same is going to be true for cars. I can imagine people coming out and saying the Volts with a V battery pack is not going to be big enough, and they're still not going to want to buy it, despite it now having 50 miles of range. And I think the same is going to be true of the Bolt with a B, because I think people always want more.
Yeah, there is an element of that, but I suppose you're always limited by what you can afford. So, hopefully that's always going to be an influence.
I think I just want a pony and trap. Let's go old fashioned. Pony and trap. All right.
They're expensive too.
They are very expensive. Any animal is very expensive. All right. Staying with Detroit for a second. Hyundai unveiled its 2016 Sonata plug-in hybrid. Big kind of press conference claiming the largest battery capacity of any plug-in hybrid on the market today, 9.8 kilowatt hours. Big fuss, big noise, and Robert's head's disappeared off the top of his screen. I just want Robert to know. There you go.
Sorry.
just sorry, your nose at this point. And there was obviously a lot of publicity about that, but Chelsea Sexton was very, very honest about it on Twitter. I can't remember the exact phrase she used, but she wasn't very impressed. And the question I have is, are people really going to be impressed with a new plug-in hybrid that only does 22 miles per charge?
Oh, it's the same route that Mercedes have gone down with their S-Class. So
yep.
It may be a similar market of those who are just looking to tax dodge, really.
Wow, well done, Faye. You just said the thing that none of us were brave enough to say. So carry on. Tell us more.
Well, obviously, I mean, certainly in the UK, there are company car tax advantages. So the fact that it's only 22 miles, well, who cares? As long as you fit into that lower tax band,
yeah,
then that might be a major advantage.
And of course, this car looks just like the Sonata hybrid, which is already out. It really is a competitor to the plug-in Prius, Robert. But do you think the plug-in Prius has got too much of a market share?
No, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I don't think the plug-in Prius has been a huge, success for Toyota. And it's certainly not something they're focusing on.
Right.
They're very they're very much. I mean, I had a meeting with Toyota when I was in Los Angeles. They are absolutely focused on their hydrogen fuel cell cars.
Right.
That's the thing. So I don't think it is. I don't think the Prius itself is a massive seller in America. I mean, you cannot move them. There's so many. The highways are full of Prii. It's absolutely extraordinary.
And
Prius, Teslas, and Leaf.
Yeah.
That's the most. You just see them everywhere. They're really common. But the thing about this is it just strikes me as being a compliance car, not necessarily for the American market, but certainly for the European market. The legislation that so many cities are bringing in for zero emission zones in cities, which means that a car like this will be the only type of car that is allowed into a city. So I think there's an element of that, as well as you're absolutely right, Faye. The tax element is a very important one, the company tax one in particular. So it just isn't it's not interesting. I'm not interested in it. I mean, I think it's better that they make it than they don't. But it doesn't strike me as it's not going to appeal to the sort of people that might make the leap to an electric car. They're not going to be interested. So it's got some other reasoning behind it, which I'm not fully aware of.
And the question I have here, I think, is, do you think that this means that we are going to be seeing people who are really against these cars? Because as journalists covering the sphere, as advocates, whatever you want to paint us as, to date, people have been really kind of very pro anything with a plug. More plugs, better. But, we've seen it with the plug-in Prius. We've seen people in California buying the plug-in Prius just so they can get the HOV lane perk, never plugging the car in.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes to me and says, I want to do that, then obviously I would be quite cross. But if of all the cars they could possibly buy to do that, the plug-in Prius is the best because it's the most efficient when it's running without electricity. But at the same point, I think, isn't it time that we start grading these cars a little more?
Yeah, I can see this, kicking off here in the UK as well, especially in London, with how popular the Outlander FEV has been. I can see eventually they're going to say, well, hang on, that's not right. These are still massive 4x4s. We don't have room for these in the city. So, yeah, I can see that things are going to have to change. We're going to have to discriminate between, which vehicles are actually really green and which are kind of compliance.
And that's a really, really nice transition into these two vehicles, which is the Volkswagen CROSS-COUPE, which was a concept car shown in Detroit by Volkswagen. It's the latest of 3 plug-in hybrid SUV concept cars that preview a full-size 7-seat SUV with a plug-in hybrid drivetrain. This one's got a massive engine in it. I think it's I want to say this one's a massive V6 engine. It's obviously from the Volkswagen Group. It's kind of sibling car, which is this one, which is the the Audi A7, Q7 E-TRON, which again, massive full-size SUV. This one's got a diesel, V6 diesel engine. It's claiming about 30 miles of all-electric range. Massive SUV, quattro drivetrain, so it's permanent all-wheel drive. But the same thing is true. It's this massive SUV. Plug-in hybrids being sold as top-end performance cars, sort of range-topping car that only the very, very wealthy buyers can afford. And kind of the plug-in hybrid drivetrain is either, as Faye put it, the congestion charge or the tax dodge. But it's also to enable car companies to keep their corporate average fuel economies down. If you can increase the top range, your SUV's average fuel economy by 20 mpg by offering a plug-in hybrid, you're going to do that, aren't you? But Faye, you don't seem convinced, and I'm not sure Robert is either.
No.
Robert, you were shaking.
Well, I sort of had to actually think then as you were describing those two cars. I mean, I am aware of their existence, haven't really thought about them, but because of my quite large admiration for the Outlander, simply because, particularly in the area I live in, there is a lot of SUV use in the Cotswolds, and I mean, it's just such a huge improvement on a 4.6 litre V8 Range Rover, which is 10, 12 miles to the gallon on average. So to get a car that's doing roughly 60 or 70 miles to the gallon is an amazing change. But that said, it's still a massive 3-ton car that, for an enormous amount of its life, there's two things. One, it's not being used at all, and two, it's got one person in it.
Yeah.
And that is so completely, ridiculously, unsustainably bonkers that it's very hard then to go, oh, it's a great step forward. It's fantastic. Because I always have argued in the world of plug-in hybrids and hybrid cars, it's better than they do that than they don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is where the line is drawn. No,
right.
It's actually better that you make smaller, lighter cars
right.
that use less fuel because they're smaller and lighter, as well as the drivetrain, rather than making massive, great tanks.
So let's talk about we go back a bit. We talk about the GTE, which we all raved about for nearly 10 minutes solid. That is a smaller car. It's much it's sporty. It's performance oriented. Combined fuel economy of about 150 mpg, which is about twice of what some of these big plug-in SUVs will get. Are you saying then that those who do need an SUV for genuine reasons might be better off buying something like an all-electric Nissan Leaf, or maybe if they can afford it, a Tesla, and then keeping a beaten-up Land Rover in the garage for when they need to take the horse to the event? He's thinking about it.
Well, that was my life for quite a long time. That's why I'm going through. I just want to say to Faye, I've also got a bike. And I do cycle.
That's okay then.
But you did have to take a horse around for a number of years.
There was a period of my daughter's life which she's now grown out of, where some horse transportation was undertaken by myself, and it was a trying period of my life.
Now, let's bash on about this for a second, Faye and Robert. There is an argument that says it's better to have an older vehicle and just not use it very often for those occasional moments when you need to use something big and bulky, and then have an all-electric car for the rest of the time. And it's going to tie in nicely to a story we've got after the break, which is about car sharing and car swapping. But what is better? What would you advocate if someone came to you, Faye, and said, came to you at the stables and said, Faye, I want to buy a greener car, but I still need to be able to take my horse somewhere. What would you say?
I'd say wait for the Tesla D models when they come out.
Okay. Robert, what would you say?
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're in the marketplace for buying a large new SUV, and I don't know what the cost of these are, but they're going to be in the 50, 60, 70,000 pound price range. If they're in the market for that sort of car, I'd say exactly what Faye just said. That's if you're going to buy a large SUV, I mean, I must admit, if I can manage to live in a tent with solar panels, then I'm buying well, is it not the model? What's the Model X called now? Is it still called the Model X?
Yes.
It's still called it.
I'd quite like one of them.
I would quite like one of those as well. I think I'd probably rather have the S with all-wheel drive though, because I don't like the high up lookiness.
I did see when we stopped for lunch, I saw a Tesla Model S D. I don't know how you would describe it. At the fast charger, and when the man drove away, I said, "Just give it a little bit of welly up there, just for me." And he did, and it is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. It was like watching it wasn't like watching a car. It was like watching a shell come out of a gun. And he did 0 to 30. He was in a car park, but the speed that thing went, you could really sense it. Very different.
Someone in the chat room says that Robert needs a Tesla. Maybe his new book will sell loads, and he can buy one.
Maybe it will, and I'll be very happy if that's the case.
Oh dear. Talking about Teslas. All right, so Tesla has announced, or Tesla kind of has leaked, or Tesla's sort of confirmed is probably the best way. Llewellyn Jerome has confirmed that the Tesla CHAdeMO adapter will come onto the market this month. Now, that means that anyone with a Tesla Model S can charge up at a CHAdeMO quick charge station just the same way as a Nissan Leaf or a Mitsubishi i-MiEV or a Mitsubishi Outlander or a Kia Soul EV. Any of those vehicles use CHAdeMO. And now Teslas will be able to too. They won't be able to charge, obviously, at the 120 kilowatts that the superchargers use, but they will be able to charge up to 50 kilowatts, depending on whether the charging station themselves supports it. The charging station adapter is something like $500 US, and I'm struggling to understand who will buy one, because if you've got the choice of a CHAdeMO charging station or a really super fast supercharger, I think I'd probably go the extra mile to use a supercharger. Robert, you use superchargers. Would you ever choose to kind of not use one?
Oh, well, I mean, if I had a Tesla and I had the money, if I had a Tesla, I'd have the money. So I would buy one of these at the drop of a hat, just because of the convenience of it. Because because there's so many CHAdeMOs, and to my knowledge, there is still only a handful of superchargers in the UK, isn't there? There's not that many. So,
well, I've got 2 different supercharger sites within 5 miles of my home.
Well, yes, you have in Bristol. You're lucky. Faye, how many have you got near your home?
I don't know, actually. I'm trying to think. They've got a new store open in Knutsford, which is near me, so there'll be one there.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, well, there we go. We don't need to use it then. But I just think that there could easily be times where you go,
yeah,
if I just plug it in here for 20 minutes, I can get home, or I can get to the other side of the country, or whatever it is. You know, it would be. I mean, it's just because I use superchargers, fast chargers all the time, because they're everywhere. You know, and they're beginning to appear in. I mean, there's one on my route now into London, which is at a gas filling station, an ordinary petrol station.
That's brilliant.
And they've got one there, which is, yeah.
So, talking about CHAdeMO, Robert, what's your experience of it? Because there's been lots of criticism lately of CHAdeMO networks in the UK not being very reliable, and my personal experience has been it's always been very reliable. And there was it's been reliable for the last year. Before that, sort of the first 2 years of these CHAdeMO chargers, they weren't very reliable, but in the last year, things have been pretty solid. And whenever I've arrived somewhere and there's been a broken charging station, there's either been another one the other side of the motorway that I've been able to use, or there's been another one within sort of 5 miles that I've been able to get to, or there's been another one right next to it that I've been able to use. What's your experience been?
Yeah, no, pretty much the same as that. I mean, last night I drove back from London in the Leaf and got to where was it? Beaconsfield, where there's 2 Ecotricity chargers, and one of those wasn't working, and it had that horrible image of the gear wheels on the screen, which you can see is, when you get to know them, you go, oh no. But then the one next door was fine, and then another Leaf driver pulled up next to me, and we had a little chat, and they waited. I was only plugged into it for about 15 minutes, so so that, yeah, I mean, I use them a lot, and they always seem to work. So I mean, there's certainly been times when they don't, and the one at Pear Tree Roundabout outside Oxford doesn't work now, and hasn't worked for about 6-8 months, which is because that was a very convenient one for me. So that's annoying, but
And the M42 has been a nightmare. I know there's been lots on the M42 that have been problematic, but
I mean, I think they just upgraded a huge amount of them over Christmas,
and they've spent a lot of time and a lot of money upgrading the Ecotricity network. Same with the other charging providers. There are very few places, I think, in the south of England now that you would have difficulty getting around to. If you want to go cross country, it's difficult. My mum, bless her, in Norfolk, she's got one within about 40 miles, and it's only available sometimes. And then there's one in Norwich itself, which is only available sometimes. But generally, I get around, and I don't have to think about it all that much. And I think, if you follow the ABC charging philosophy, which is always be charging. Never pass a charging station without stopping. If it's a fast charger, never pass it by, because
never leave that one there. Always get a bit of juice.
Always get a bit of juice, even if it's 10 minutes. And if you're short of bladder like I am, it's perfect, because you nip in, you have a wee, and you've got another 20 miles by the time you get out.
Very good advice. Or Faye, always take a comfort break when you get the chance.
I'm taking notes.
I knew it was going to be one of those fun shows with you guys. All right, and now it's time for our ad break. If normally we'd have an ad in the show. We can't take donations anymore, as we've told you multiple times on the show, but we've got some fantastic sponsorships coming our way, so we'll soon get rid of this and have a proper ad. But if you are the kind of person who likes to support the show in other ways, and you've already taken advantage of the shop that we mentioned in our first ad, then this is the best way that you can help us. Tell everybody about the show. Leave a review for us on our YouTube channel or on the iTunes channel where we broadcast all our shows. Also, tell your friends, family, co-workers, dog, cat, grandma, must help grannies too, to plug in and find out about future cars, safer, greener, smarter. That is our ideal, and by spreading the word about us and our website, you bring more traffic to our website, and that means that we can get nice sponsors to come and give us money to talk about things. Basically it, really. Being really honest. And if you do already support us in some of those ways, thank you for your support. All right, final segment of the show today. We're going to be talking about a problem that we have encountered a lot. Robert and Faye, I know you've had these conversations with people before. Faye, someone comes up to you and they go, oh yeah, I'd really like an electric car, or I'd really like a hybrid car, or I'd really like a small fuel efficient subcompact car, but I have to go and see Granny once a month in Scotland, or I have to drive down to London twice a year to go, I don't know, shopping, and therefore I can't possibly buy this fuel efficient green car. Have you ever had that?
Yeah, plenty of times.
Okay, so what's your standard answer?
Well, I suppose I do start to go on about car clubs, and that motoring will become more flexible, and we'll get more used to swapping cars and using them as and when we need them. So switching from an electric to a plug-in hybrid suits.
And Robert, you get this a lot living in Gloucestershire. You get lots of people say, oh, I'd love to have an electric car, but...
Oh, no, I don't think I don't. not in Gloucestershire.
Not in Gloucestershire.
I wouldn't be seen dead in one of those ghastly communist vehicles, is probably more common. Yeah.
You really should stop having pints with Jeremy Clarkson.
But certainly when I've done talks about electric vehicles and all that stuff, the thing that you can see people register, understand, go and start to think about is the idea of car sharing, car clubs, not owning a car yourself,
right,
but having access to them when you need them, and therefore access to a wider range of them. So if you buy a car, it's a huge investment to buy a car. I mean, regardless of what it is, even if it's the cheapest petrol car on the market, if you buy a new car, I mean, they're £8,000, £9,000, £10,000. That's more expensive than, a new kitchen, a new bathroom, all that. It's a big investment that you're using for a very small amount of time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I use my kitchen much more than my car.
Yeah,
that's where I spend more time in my kitchen than I do in my car. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to line up my camera so that I'm so difficult to get myself in the picture.
You need to get your little gorilla grip out and put it somewhere.
I know, but what I'm using, I don't even want to take. I am actually using my selfie stick. It's very comfy and very easy. But I am on a selfie stick at the moment.
Around. I didn't even know you had one. There you go.
Yeah,
all right, so Ford has basically.
Sorry.
Children.
Sorry.
So, Ford has come up with a great concept and a great test pilot program that it's doing in Dearborn, Michigan, where one of its offices are, and it's received very little publicity, and I think that's a shame because Ford's really not into its electric vehicles or its plug-in vehicles, but this particular scheme has the potential to change the way that people think about car buying and get more people buying cars that are appropriate for 95% of their journeys 95% of the time. So it stops the people coming along and going, I want to buy a really fuel efficient car. Of course I do, but I have to go and see my granny in Scotland once a year and we have to fill up the car with the dogs and all the Christmas presents and whatever, and there's just not enough space if I buy a fuel efficient vehicle to do that. Now Ford's doing this scheme. It's called effectively it's a car swap program, and it works fantastically well. The idea is you register for the scheme and you say, hey, I've got this car. I've got, I don't know, I've got a pickup truck and I want to register for it, or I've got a Mustang, as this woman has in this picture here. She needs a pickup truck. She's walking over to one of her colleagues who's got a pickup. She gives them the keys to her Mustang, and they swap cars for the day. And then, when she's done whatever she needs a pickup for, she swaps back and job's a good one. And it just seems like a really sensible scheme, because it means that you can link up with other people in your neighbourhood who've got cars that you could potentially use. It might be good for electric car drivers who want to do a bit of evangelizing, because they could maybe get together with some neighbours and go, hey, I want to go to an all-electric household, but maybe when I need to, will you mind swapping cars with me? I'm sure this already happens in families. I know it happens in families and extended families, and maybe groups of friends. And actually, there's been moments in the past where I've swapped cars with my friends. I've swapped a Land Rover with a friend of mine. I needed a Land Rover. I can't remember why I needed it. Oh, that's right. I needed a car with more than 5 seats. So I swapped with my friend. I borrowed his Land Rover. He had our smart car for the evening. This is back when we had a smart car. He had a great time because he'd never driven a smart car before. And I had a Land Rover with more than 5 seats that I could take all the people I needed to take to the place I needed to go. And I've done it before when we had an old Volvo estate and we needed to, a friend needed to tow something. So I swapped cars with her. She had my Volvo and I had her car for the afternoon. I didn't mind because it meant I got a Morris Minor for a couple of, for a while, and I haven't driven one of those for a while. So it works really well. Could you see it working on a larger scale, Faye?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I thought we had a similar scheme here, didn't we, called Whip Car that vanished.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm good on Ford for doing it, because, if they can get anybody involved in it, starting with their own employees is a great way to kind of get the ball rolling, as it were. You'd want your employees to drive as many vehicles as they can, really, to get to know your own range, but to get to know the rivals as well.
Yeah. Robert, would you take part in a scheme like this?
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, I think it feels to me a bit like an interim arrangement that is likely to take off. And I can imagine people going, "Oh, all right, let's try that." And it might also encourage some people to make the leap to buying a pure electric car. I mean, I think the ultimately, I certainly see the level of, and I'm talking, this is 10, 15 years, 20 years. Right, okay. The level of private car ownership is dropping globally, particularly in the developed countries, as people start to, what I saw in Berlin a couple of years ago was an extraordinary change in the relationship we have with cars. That it was so many people just don't own a car because they use a Car2Go or Zipcar or whatever they use those all the time. And then if they're going away on a big holiday or they're going to drive somewhere, they rent a car for that period. And the economic benefits of that are enormous. And that's, it isn't just a stylistic thing or an environmental decision. It's also an economic one. And also, very importantly, it means there's less cars on the road. And if there's less cars on the road, it's easier to drive and it's easier to park. It's really easy to park in Berlin, the capital city of a huge country. And you can actually find a parking space quite easily. It's extraordinary. There's an enormous drop in the numbers of cars in Berlin.
Yeah. And of course, as someone in the chat room says, anything like this would require specialist insurance. I mean, we're taking
you'd have to have that range. It's like Airbnb. It's like that sort of thing. I mean, it's clearly once you get it right, once you get that arrangement right, and people understand it and trust it, then it starts to really work very well.
Yeah. All right. So, next generation Nissan Leaf. We've talked about the next generation Nissan Leaf quite a lot on the show. We've previewed it, expected 2017, 2018. But we're also talking about having longer range batteries. Now, this week in Detroit, Nissan's Philippe Klein promised, hinted, maybe is a better word, that the next generation Leaf would have massively improved battery chemistry. And importantly, that Nissan could pretty much eliminate range anxiety for most people in the next generation Leaf or its next generation electric car battery pack. He didn't actually say the Leaf, but next generation electric car battery pack. Which brings us to the question of, do we think that range anxiety really will die, or do you think people will just push it to new levels? I mean, when I've borrowed a Tesla Model S, I've got it down to sort of 1 or 2 miles remaining on the range meter. So Faye, range anxiety, will it still exist?
Well, I can see what you've said before about people always wanting more. So yeah, there's always going to be an element of that, because even 200 miles isn't enough to go see Granny in Scotland, like you say. But yeah, I think it will help a lot more people get over the idea of having an electric car and feeling secure in the range.
Yeah. Robert?
I mean, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you could have 1,000-mile range in your electric car and you could still get range anxiety, because you could drive at 999 miles.
Yes.
And go, where's the charger? So, I mean, I would argue, and I do argue very strongly, that the notion of range anxiety is marketing spin by the petrochemical industry. And it doesn't, once you get used to it, you don't actually get it, I actually give myself a 20-mile buffer.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing a longer journey, oh God, I'm sorry, I've got to go and sort the dog out because he's urinating in the kitchen. I have to go. This is what's called an emergency. I'll be back very soon. Hang on.
This is the point. Oh, it's always such a joy having Robert on the show. So, it's kind of funny because I don't know what to say now. The thing that I was going to bring in was that Robert very often talks about your bladder anxiety, the idea that your car only needs to really go as far as your bladder can hold. So I don't know very many people that can go for sort of 200 or 300 miles without needing to pee. Obviously, Robert's dog is one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's absolutely right, isn't it? But like Robert says, they'll drive it, if they've got 1,000 miles, they'll drive 999 and still moan. But I think most people will have a bit more sense than that, I hope. But the interesting thing is, is how the leaf, if the bolt does come out at the same time as the new leaf. I've been looking at kind of the potential pros and cons of each. Possibly the Bolt might beat the Leaf on range, but you're comparing a 5-seat to a 4-seat. So the Nissan Leaf is much more practical family car in that sense.
It is. Sorry, I'm just preoccupied with Lurcher P now.
I was filling.
You were filling very well. I'm sorry. All right, well, we're going to move on because Robert's still clearing up the Lurcher, the Lurcher P. I'm sorry. I tell my children off when they laugh about, bodily fluid jokes. Terrible. It's terrible. All right. It's just the way you said it. All right. Concentrate, Nikki. Concentrate. All right. Well, we're on to our penultimate story, and this is one, Faye, that I know that is quite dear to your heart, which is off-grid living and solar panels and being able to generate your own electricity and be completely self-sufficient. But there seems to be a growing trend, and there's a couple of articles coming out this week talking about that, where energy companies are lobbying successfully to try and stop people who have... He's back.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Why do I have to put up with this? Oh.
I thought he was your daughter's dog.
He's my wife's dog.
Oh, okay, right. Okay.
Where is my wife? Sydney, Australia. Is she here mopping up the wee on the floor? No, she's not. There we go. You have my whole life in a nutshell.
Well, your other dog is very well behaved.
The other dog is divine. She's a plug and play eye dog. She
amuses herself, gets on with things, but
yeah, he is a prototype sort of plug-in hybrid that doesn't work. He's just really annoying.
Oh dear. Right. Okay. We're going on to the last two stories of the show. Right. So we were talking a second ago about the disturbing trend towards trying energy companies lobbying successfully in some cases in some US states to pass legislation that prevents people from generating their own electricity and staying and using their own electricity. In other words, trying to stop people from unplugging from the grid, going off grid. And it's a disturbing trend, especially if you've got a plug-in vehicle or you want to live a more fuel efficient, greener life. Robert, you're very very into your renewable energies. You're working on a renewable energy project in your village at the moment. And Faye, I know you are also very into the idea of off-grid and self-sufficiency. So I'd like to grab your thoughts on both of them. Let's start with Faye.
I'm so shocked that this is already happening. You know, it's such a small scale thing. There's so few people who are generating their own solar. I just can't believe it's already a thing. It's sort of something that I'd have expected in 10 years' time to become an issue, that the utilities companies would want to do something about people generating their own energy.
It's sad. It really is sad. And I do wonder why. I mean, the argument is the electricity grid, and I can understand at least in part the logic. It's the same logic that people have wanted to tax EVs for using the roads. The logic being, when you pay your utility bill, part of the electricity charges that you pay goes towards the upkeep of the electrical network, the electrical grid. And let's be honest, even if you're off the grid, even if you've unplugged from the grid, there will be part of the electrical network that you will still use, whether it's when you go to the shops or whether you go to, when you're driving down the highway and you've got electric lights lighting the way. And yes, I can understand there is, this concern that if everybody plugs in and goes off grid, then suddenly the electricity grids will not have quite as much income coming in, and that will make things more difficult to upkeep, etc., etc. But on the same level, I think taxing people and making it either illegal or fining people heavily for generating their own electricity and reducing the strain on the grid. And this is the important thing, because when you go off grid, you reduce the strain on your grid, don't you, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, I think it highlights the unique difference between the United States and Europe, which is I'm always reminded of that when I'm there. Is that the United States is a fully fledged free market economy, and we're kind of in between that. And then in the rest of Europe, they're a little bit more benign towards the idea of government controlling things like the grid, like energy generation and distribution. Whereas in America, it is a true free market, which means that if an individual challenges that free market dominance of a large corporation who've got the money and the muscle and the lawyers to pay for this sort of activity, they will do it. Whereas here, that would be much harder. I think in Europe, it would be a lot harder for a big British utility to say to a tiny group of customers who generate maybe some or a large proportion of their own electricity, for them to introduce the same sort of thing. So I think it's a pretty American idea, but I think I agree with Faye, is that it's come around much faster, because I was always aware that when the utilities see the dents that this new technology makes in their the profits that they're used to, they will react with aggression and with venom.
Yeah,
it's part of their nature. It's the way that those corporations work. They will fight, and they'll fight dirty to maintain their dominant position. The oil industry did it. The tobacco industry did it. The asbestos industry do it. They will lie, cheat, steal, bludgeon, murder, do anything they can to maintain their profits. And this is really one of those steps. But I'm surprised it's happened so quickly, because, as Faye says, it's not that many people and it's not that common yet. But I think they can see it coming. They can see it coming.
And I mean, we are seeing it in the UK in a different way, because we've now, seen the current administration go, well, we're not going to support large-scale wind farms. We're not going to support large-scale solar farms anymore. And actually, the government has really cut back on its support for renewable energy, pushed all of its money into the fracking business and supporting that. What's going to be interesting, and I say this with a smile on my face because I hope not to be around when it happens, is that the fracking, the shale industry in the States is in big trouble. We've had BP, a couple of other big oil companies restructuring themselves in the past couple of weeks to try and minimize the impact of oil being literally dirt cheap, suddenly dropping in price. The oil industry can't afford to keep itself running in the way it's currently working. And actually, it seems quite intuitive, I think, for those who can afford to go off grid and to find new renewable ways of keeping their lives sustainable, whether it's through electric cars, whether it's through car sharing, whether it's through bicycling or whatever. Getting away from these old energy sources and keeping themselves cocooned almost. You know, I mean, we had a power cut on Monday, but it's also about sort of learning that we really do rely on power in a different way to what we did sort of 10, 20, 30 years ago. You know, when I was a kid, power cut was a chance to read a book by candlelight, and it was all kind of cool and exciting. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have any kind of fully interconnected world that suddenly the world was disconnected and we were scared. We had a power cut on Monday, and both my children nearly turned feral. I'm not joking. It was half an hour or an hour, and the concept of not having an internet connection or a television or lights or anything like that. So it does make a sense that maybe we do need to start looking towards having our own energy storage, having our own reliance on things.
I mean, I think my argument is very strongly that it isn't down to, because the individual, as an individual, you can maybe, if you've got the money and the type of house that can do it and the space, you can maybe insulate yourself against that. But I think it's very important that communities get together. And this is really the whole argument with community-based renewable energy ideas and community-based storage, so that you share the cost of low-level domestic storage for each house in a community. Yeah. That, and it's going to take a long time. This is not going to happen overnight. But I mean, that's what we're trying to do in the village I live in. Every house will have a 3.5 or 4 kilowatt hour battery as part of the deal that we're doing, which will basically take them off the grid at peak time, which is of enormous benefit to the grid and to energy generators and everybody. It's it's not an attack on the existing infrastructure. It will actually make the existing infrastructure last longer and work better. So, that's my argument. But, as an individual now, I think when I was a sort of 18-year-old hippie, I wanted to live in a self-supporting community in rural Wales and just get away from the rat race. Yeah. And I now understand that the rat race would probably come to your door quite quickly in the event of severe civil turmoil. It doesn't matter where you live. So I kind of think we need to insulate our communities against that.
And for those who haven't read it yet, Robert wrote a fantastic guest post on Transport Evolved at the end of last month. So do go and read it, where he talks about his project and the idea of making community energy really, really super important. The other thing, Robert, I'm gonna plea you. You've obviously you've done your book, your talk tour. Electric cars are rubbish, aren't they? I really do hope that you're going to do another one talking about storage solutions and energy. Oh God, all right. Yeah, I'll try it. I'm talking you into it now. All right. On to penultimate story, and now for something completely different. And this is really super futuristic. This is Elon Musk's Hyperloop, which has been around for a couple of years now. Elon Musk announced it and the whole world went wild. The Hyperloop, for those who don't know, is a low-pressure transportation tube-based system where you basically get into this capsule that sits inside a tube where the air pressure is not completely zero vacuum. Oh, sorry, it's not complete vacuum. It's very, very low air pressure, and you sit in this capsule, and it zooms you along really, really fast using effectively maglev style technology. Musk released a white paper on it and blueprints, and since then it's been open sourced. And he said, look, a long time ago when he unveiled it, I'm not going to build this myself. I'm going to open this up to the academic community and those who are interested so they can build it themselves. Turns out, though, this week on Twitter's, which is where Mr. Musk likes to announce these type of things, he's going to build a test track in Texas for students to test this technology. What do you make of that, Robert?
I mean, it's brilliant. Two, I don't want to harp on about my books at all, but in book one of the News From trilogy, the hero Gavin Meckler goes down into the ground and into a tunnel where there's a maglev vehicle that transports him underneath what we know as the United Kingdom at the moment at between 600 and 1,000 miles an hour. So it's definitely something I'm very interested in. I think it's, if there's anyone in the world at the moment who is capable of doing it, who's capable of at least making a plausible test track, I think it probably is Mr. Musk. It is extraordinary. And I mean, it makes such it's such the next step we need to do, because it doesn't require jet fuel. You could make that thing work without burning anything. And that's what I find is the most inspiring about it, is that it is what do magnets and electricity, what does a maglev need to run? It needs electricity. It doesn't need jet fuel, gasoline, diesel, or anything else.
And the nice thing about this is that the tubes sit above regular routes, so they're not going to get in the way. And they've got solar panels on top. So as you say, they generate the power they need to move everything along. It is fantastic. Musk said we're going to build this test track to test pod prototypes, but he was also saying, maybe we'll start like our own form of racing, a bit like Formula E, but for pod racing.
Wouldn't it be quite hard to watch? You're just looking at some tubes and you're being told.
I do have to wonder, is Elon Musk just sitting there? Because there's this fantastic Twitter account, isn't there, called Bored Elon Musk?
Yeah, I love Bored Elon Musk.
Bored Elon Musk is brilliant. And I do wonder if now Bored Elon Musk and Iron Man, Tony Stark, they're all kind of melding together. It's crazy, isn't it, Faye?
Yeah, but the fact that he's come back, I mean, he said he wasn't really going to develop this himself. So the fact that he's kind of come back with these announcements almost seems like he's saying, right, I'm going to have to be involved in this to make it happen. So I think he is serious, although we joke about it. I'm not sure how the pod racing is going to work. It kind of makes me think of hamsters going through the tubes, you know?
And I did say, I decided that 2015 is going to be the year where Elon Musk is either proven to be an insane genius or just a genius who is incredibly insane. That's going to be my prediction for this year, and I'm sticking to it. That's it for today's show. Thank you very much for joining us, Faye. Where can people find out about you?
Well, I'm currently doing a monthly column for Next Green Car, so you can find me on there, nextgreencar.com, or you can find me on Twitter.
Fantastic. And your Twitter handle is in the lower third there, which is fantastic. It's Fail Blinder Blind. How do you pronounce it?
Well, we say fail blunder bland.
Fail Blunder Bland.
Yeah. Take some account of my name.
Okay. Robert, where can people find out about you?
I'm about to launch, when I've got it done, a new website that's dedicated to Fully Charged, and I don't know what it's going to be called yet. But if you look up youtube.com/Fully Charged Show, you'll see all the 104 episodes I've already made, and there's a load more in the pipeline.
That's it. I'm packing up then. Robert's launching a website. I'm done. Bye. Bye, everybody. No, it's very, very sweet. When he told me about it this week, Robert said, there's room for both of us. That really is it for today's show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And don't forget, you can go to our website every day, www.transportevolved.com, for the latest news and reviews in the world of future car technology. It's cleaner, greener, smarter and safer. We cover it. Yes, we also cover hydrogen fuel cells. Yes, we cover plug-ins of all types and sizes. Yes, we even cover internal combustion vehicles if they are driving themselves or doing other cool, autonomous, safe things. The idea is to make the world safer, greener, smarter and safer for everybody. I think I said safer twice, but I'm just going to ignore that. Anyway. Thanks for joining us. You can also catch our weekly show, TEN, every Friday, the roundup from the news of the week. And there's going to be a new Quick Charge and Charged Up coming soon with the aforementioned Volkswagen e-Golf. So do stay tuned for that. My name's Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, don't forget to plug in. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.